Hi, and welcome to Unit 4 of Getting Started with Data Science. In this unit, we're going to start looking at the phases of the CRISP methodology in a bit more detail. And let's start with an overview of the business understanding phase. This phase focuses on understanding the project objectives and requirements from a business perspective, then converting this knowledge into a data science problem definition and a preliminary plan that's designed to achieve the objectives. Task 1 is to determine the business objectives. We need to gain a thorough understanding from a business perspective what the client really wants to accomplish. This is their business goal for the project. We must uncover any important factors at the beginning of the project that can influence the outcome of the project. Remember that missing this step could mean that we're wasting a great deal of time and effort producing the right answer to the wrong question. Task 2 is to assess the situation. We make more detailed fact-finding about all the resources, the constraints, and the assumptions, and any other factors that we need to consider. And we need to flesh out these details. Task 3 is to determine the data science goals. We defined the business goals in Task 1, and basically these state the objectives from a business perspective in business terminology. Here, we need to define a data science goal that clearly states the project objectives in technical terms. Task 4 is to produce the project plan. We describe the intended plan for achieving the data science goals and the business goals. And remember that the plan should specify any anticipated steps that we need to perform during the rest of the project, and we need to include our understanding of the initial selection of the tools and the techniques. Task 1 is determining the business objectives. The first objective is to thoroughly understand from a business perspective what the client really wants to accomplish. This is their business goal. Often the organisation has many competing objectives and constraints that must be properly balanced. The analyst's goal is to uncover important factors at the beginning that can influence the outcome of the project. You also need to understand how the customer wants to deploy the results from the analysis. So, for example, will a predictive model be deployed in a production system? Will a dashboard with real-time updates of the model outputs be required? Or is the requirement for a report delivered in a text document? The outputs from this are an assessment of the background. We record the information that is known about the organisation's business situation at the beginning of the project. We describe the customer's primary business goal from a business perspective. And in addition to the primary business objectives, there are typically other related business questions that the organisation might like us to address. So, for example, the primary business goal for a financial services business might be to keep current customers by predicting when they are most prone to move to a competitor, to switch. Examples of related business questions are: how does the primary channel a business customer use, so for example the ATM or branch visits or via the internet, affect whether they stay or go? Or will lower ATM fees significantly reduce the number of high-value customers who leave? We describe the criteria for a successful or useful outcome to the project from the business point of view. This might be quite specific and able to be measured objectively, such as a reduction of customer churn to a certain level. Or it could be general and subjective, such as, can you give useful insights into a relationship? And of course, you'll record this information that describes any deployment requirements for the analysis and the outputs from the analysis. So these are clearly defined and agreed between yourself and the customer. Task 2 is to assess the business situation. In the previous task, the objective is to quickly get to the crux of the situation, and here what we want to do is to flesh out the details. This task involves more detailed fact-finding about all of the resources, the constraints and the assumptions, and any other factors that should be considered in determining the data science goal and the project plan. We need to list the resources that are available to the project, including the personnel. So, for example, the business experts, or the data experts and technical support that's required, and of course the data science personnel. The data that we need, are we going to be using fixed extracts, or do we need access to a live warehouse or operational data? The computing resources we'll be using, the hardware for example, and the software, the data science tools that we're going to be using. The outputs from this are the inventory of resources. So here what we do is we list all the resources that are available to the project. We list all the requirements of the project, including a schedule of completion. As part of this output, we need to make sure that we are allowed to actually get access and use the data. We list the assumptions made by the project, and these might be assumptions about the data that can be checked during the analysis process. It's particularly important to list these if they form conditions on the validity of the results. We list the constraints of the project, and these might be constraints on the availability of resources, but might also include technological constraints, such as the size of the data that is practical to use for the modelling. We list the risks and contingencies. Here we need to list the risks or events that might occur to delay the project or cause it to fail. We list the corresponding contingency plans and identify what actions will be taken if the risks happen. We compile a glossary of terminology relevant to the project, and this might include two different components. You can have a glossary of relevant business terminology, which forms part of the business understanding available to the project. And also you can have a glossary of data science terminology that illustrates with examples any relevant technological algorithms we're using, so that it helps the business understand the approach that we're using. We often will also conduct a cost-benefit analysis for the project, which compares the costs of the project with the potential benefit to the business if it's successful. Task 3 is to determine the data science goals. A business goal states the objectives in business terminology, and we define this in Task 1. A data science goal states the project objectives in technical terms. So, for example, the business goal might be increase sales to existing customers. A data science goal might be predict how many widgets a customer will buy, given their purchases over the past 3 years, demographic information such as their age and salary and where they live, and the price of the item. The output from this is a list of the data science goals. Here we describe the intended output of the project that enables the achievement of the business objectives, but from the data science perspective. We also define the data science success criteria for a successful outcome to the project in technical terms. For example, a certain level of predictive accuracy or a propensity to purchase profile with a given degree of model performance, such as lift. Task 4 is to produce a project plan. We describe the intended plan for achieving the data science goals and thereby achieving the business goals. The plan should specify the anticipated set of steps to be performed during the rest of the project, including an initial selection of tools and techniques. The output from this is, of course, the project plan. We list the stages to be executed in the project together with the duration, the resources, the inputs, the outputs, and the dependencies. Where possible, we make explicit the large-scale iterations in the data science process. For example, repetitions of the modelling and evaluation phases. As part of the project plan, it's also really important to analyse the dependencies between the time schedule and the risks. The project plan is a dynamic document in the sense that at the end of each phase, a review of progress and achievements is necessary, and an update of the project plan is really recommended. Specific review points for these updates must be made explicit within the project plan. At the end of the first phase, the project also performs an initial assessment of tools and techniques. So, for example, you select a data science algorithm that supports the available data and what the required output will be. It's important to assess the tools and techniques early in the process, since this selection possibility could influence the entire project. So this is a short summary. This unit has introduced you to the tasks required in the business understanding phase, the first phase of the CRISP-DM project methodology. These are determine business objectives and agree the deployment options, assess the situation, determine the data science goals, and produce the project plan. That's it from there. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful. In the next unit, we're going to be looking at defining the project success criteria. See you then.